Well, today my special guest is Chad Daniel. He has a very unique ministry and a unique style of ministry.
I'm willing to juggle a chainsaw that's on fire if it'll make a young person hold still and allow me to speak the words of Christ to them.
So what exactly is Youth Bites?
Why did you start the Youth Bites TV program?
Youth Bites was a response to a cry from international pastors who said, is there any type of media-based discipleship product or tool that we can use that's in our own language? And God said, Chad, make it.
Chad, you are a brave man.
Anything for the gospel. I'll be a fool to all men if it'll make you hold still and listen.
Now, I heard you traveled over to Japan.
What is the Sea of Trees?
Tell us exactly what Sea of Trees
Well,
is.
Sea of Trees is called the Aokigahara. Unfortunately, it's been marred and has become a popular place for people to commit suicide. And so I said, you know what, I want to go to where the heart of this thing is, and did an expose on teenage suicide and confronted it head on. I had no idea what we were going to come upon. It was very obvious to me that we were on the trail of a spirit who is trying to steal the life from a generation.
Well, today we're going to be talking about a subject that is rarely talked about on television, and that's suicide. God provided this program to let them know that there is hope for anybody. I want to go to your story about your dad.
My father committed suicide many years ago. It was that point that I said, God, take this event in my life and use it to touch the lives of young people around the world.
You did the best thing that you could do by taking that tragic thing and do something good with it. And so now you actually have special crusades around the world for teenagers specifically that are having problems with suicide.
As you've been kind of showing people some of your videos or even sharing your own personal testimony, how are some of the people been affected positively?
We started doing life events probably 4 years ago, and it's an anti-suicide event, and thousands respond. And to see what the Spirit of God does as we begin to communicate life, the pastor just scratches his head and said, I had no idea that this was such a problem with our believers. These are people who really have a relationship with Jesus but are struggling in their mind, who are battling with thoughts of suicide, depression, oppression, and hopelessness. The message of life is always going to instill hope in people. Most teenagers will not come out in the open and begin to just openly communicate with you and to say, this is what I'm dealing with, can you help me? Because there's such pride that's taught that we must stand up, we must fend for ourselves. You have to talk about it.
We need to get rid of these things and bring them out in the open and get the help that we need.
If we don't begin to tackle this as believers and communicate hope, it is a road that's becoming wider as we choose to do nothing about it. There's not a voice on the wall shouting, wait a minute, your life is worth living. Your call has souls and nations attached to it. Don't forfeit and abort what God has given you.
I think it is something that needs to be dealt with. There's a lot of young people today that are contemplating suicide or actually committing suicide. Probably almost all of us know of someone.
You know what, if I can reach one, then we have accomplished our goal, because each one can reach one, because some of the greatest advocates for anti-suicide are those of us who have lost a family member or friends due to it.
And Chad, you've got another product in the works that's really close to your heart on suicide. What is that?
You know, my father committed suicide many years ago, and when we went to Japan to create the documentary, I became aware of a wound in my heart. The culmination of me being in the Sea of Trees and realizing I had this open wound in my heart provoked me to write my first book. It's a story about the demonic forces that are always at work in the life of the survivors. And ultimately, it's a redemption tale that shows us that we can find hope even in the darkest places if we keep our eyes on Jesus.